live from the Bayside bunker. It's episode 162 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and hopefully you all had a very happy holiday with not only Christmas, Hanukkah, anything you guys celebrate. I hope you all had a fantastic holiday, and hopefully you all have a happy new year as well. But of course, as we all know, the racing does not stop for any of the festivities as we ring in the new year with Gulfstream Park as we cover their Saturday program for January 3rd, 2025. And we cover the Late Pick5 for you that includes 2 stake races. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys all so much for joining the show. I greatly appreciate it. If you guys do end up enjoying the show, which I hope you do, please go down below the video player, hit the like button here on YouTube, and hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it because not only is that the #1 way to help out our channel, is completely free to do, but it also pushes these videos out into YouTube's algorithm to hopefully bring more horse players to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. Our normal schedule outside of the holidays is scrolling on the bottom of the screen right now. You have every single Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern with Pacific Horseplayers with Noah, Ryan, and Jackson. Every single Wednesday, you have 7 p.m. Eastern, which is our fantastic show I'll talk about in a second, which is called The Leaderboard, sponsored by TwinSpires. It's a fantastic contest strategy show. And then you, of course, have us every single Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern with Bettin N Boozin. Then you have Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern every single night with Howard, Pete, and Paul and Picks and Ponies. And Saturday, which is always a TBD. So again, more to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you're always notified on when the show is. But of course, Weekend Warriors, our live show every single Saturday covering live racing, is always on Saturday. So keep an eye out for that coming up after the holidays. But guys, we have a ton of fantastic stuff, and really stuff that we're excited about that I already shared with you guys last week. But of course, we're going to bring it up again this week. You can also listen to every single podcast here on YouTube in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. So please go rate, review, and subscribe over there if that's something that interests you. Short form content over on our TikTok and Instagram at Bettin N Boozin Podcast. So please go rate, review, and subscribe over there as well. Team HHH, guys, it's our yearly subscription for all the Power Pick tip sheets that we do throughout the entire year. That not only includes our weekly tip sheet that's normally billed through Patreon, that comes to you every single Saturday. That also includes all of our packages throughout the entire year. That includes not only full meet packages such as Keeneland Spring, Keeneland Fall, that's every single Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of both those meets, the Saratoga Summer Meet, the Del Mar Summer Meet, as well as the big ones, the Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby package, as well as Breeders' Cup Friday and Breeders' Cup Saturday. All of the information on that regard is over on our website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Link is also in the description below. And speaking of our normal Power Picks, that's all done over on Patreon, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Link is also in the description box below. Guys, we have 2 very, very exciting things. Again, you all know about the leaderboard. It's a show that's been going on now for a while. It's aired every single Wednesday, normally before and after the holiday season. Will be aired Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's a fantastic show that we partner with our good friends over at TwinSpires. It's live money, contest play, and contest strategy. They talk about exactly how the previous winner last week won their contest, preview the upcoming contests that go along with a lot of these races that we cover here on the HHH Racing Podcast. Whether you're a brand new contest player or a seasoned veteran, it's a fantastic show that you guys do want to check out. Again, sponsored by our great friends over at TwinSpires. And of course, we have our brand new show that aired last Tuesday. There's a ton of really nice support for it. So thank you guys all so much for tuning in to our first episode of Wire to Wire, sponsored by First Racing, covering the Coast to Coast Pick 5 over the weekend.
It's the first Coast to Coast Pick 5.
An attractive Pick 5 sequence featuring Gulfstream Park
And Santa Anita Park. Player friendly 15% takeout.
A $1 minimum. Big pool.
Huge payout. First Coast to Coast Pick 5 every Saturday and Sunday.
It's really a really good bet. I think the Coast to Coast Pick 5 paid over $20,000 this week. It's big fields. It's really nice racing between Gulfstream Park and Santa Anita, of course, sponsored by our great friends that offer it over at First Racing. Again, our second show of Wire to Wire is actually going to be this Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So please come by over there as we preview the Coast to Coast Pick 5 on Saturday. But again, that's enough yapping from me. You guys know that I like to talk during these intros, but that's enough for me. Let's bring on the co-host and let's get right into the handicapping. Of course, everyone's familiar with him by now from the Philadelphia era. Good friend Andrew Rosinski. And normally, of course, this is when I would bring on my good friend Patrick Kunsel, but Gulfstream Park, who does that remind you of as we continue to talk about this podcast? The man who will talk your ear off all podcast long. Get ready for him. Chuckles Freeman. Chuckles, what's going on, my friend? Good to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I mean, where else would I possibly return other than my new adopted home track? Well, I guess at this point, with how long Arlington's been gone, I don't know if it's new, but obviously I had to return for my adopted home track that I've had for the past few times. And now, Kyle, we can officially say for you as well, we now have two members of this podcast that their home track is Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, no kidding. Obviously, 45 minutes away from me, and you're coming. I don't know if you're already in Florida. You're coming down here, or you're coming down here shortly because we will be at the track this weekend. So that'll be obviously very exciting to be around. Andrew, obviously, my friend. Hopefully, you're doing well.
Oh yeah, doing great, doing good.
Like I said, but we had some really nice racing this past weekend. Not only at the fairgrounds, what we covered, but also with Malibu Day over at Santa Anita Park. There's lots of good racing now as the winter starts really heating up, not only in the lead to the Pegasus, but on the complete lead all the way until the first Saturday in May. Again, guys, if you're watching this and you have something to comment about, or if you've already looked at this card for Gulfstream Park, which I know it's a little bit ways away. However, if you have any opinions, please comment them on the live chat, both on YouTube and on X. It's in the bottom right-hand side of the video player. So please, again, comment. We do read every single one. Tanner Hawkins, my friend. Tanner, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciated. Katie, of course, was here, and Charlie is back, says the boss man. We're very excited, of course, to have everyone in here tonight. So again, comment in the live chat if you guys are here. We would love to bring you up on the screen. Guys, we're going to cover the late pick 6 at Gulfstream Park. Normally, of course, we cover the pick 5, but there is one stakes race that is outside the late pick 5. So, and it's race number 6. It's the race that kicks off the Rainbow 6. It's the race that also kicks off the Tropical Turf pick 3. So lots of big implications for race 6, which is the co-feature on the day. It's the Ginger Brew Stakes. And I'll bring up the Equibase on the screen, of course, as always. It is a field of 8 going a mile on the Gulfstream Park turf course. The 3-year-old fillies, the morning line favorite. Again, guys, of course, as we're covering Gulfstream Park earlier in the week, we unfortunately do not have numbers in the programs, and we do not have morning lines. So again, your guess is as good as mine on these morning lines, and I could see at least 3 different horses having the morning line the favoritism come post time as I put our picks up on the screen right now. Charlie, there you go. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate that. Going into race number 6, both Charlie and I are going with the number 6 in this race, Sister Troyenne. Andrew, you're going a little bit of a different way than us. You're going with the number 1, Storm's Wake, the other Brian Lynch in this race compared to the other one we're going with in this race. But obviously, we all like Brian Lynch. So you get to tell us why you're right with yours and why we're wrong with ours.
I don't know if necessarily I'm right with mine because I also do have the 6 in my top 3, and I think it really goes through Brian Lynch here. But I'm going to take a little bit of a shot with the second choice of the 2, I believe. Brian Lynch is on fire. I mean, 10 for 23 going into when this card was drawn. This horse, you could toss out the stakes race last time out. Like the field is mostly the same field as this race, but she never got situated, and she kind of had to be rushed up a little bit, and she didn't break too sharp. She never really likes to run that way. She's more of a deep closer. So the fact that she was placed well and forwardly that day kind of ruined her chances. And I think Juarez will time the trip a little bit better today. Breaking from the inside, he can just kind of sit back a little bit. And if she runs that Churchill race, I think she fits in the spot and she can win.
She definitely fits if she runs that race. The only thing I was concerned with, Andrew, was the pace scenario. Obviously, they actually have the one sitting in third, but obviously, from what you just said, obviously you think her running style is more of a deep closer type. So if they don't end up going too fast up front, obviously, in theory, that could hurt the one's chances. But obviously, you think she just could be better if she runs to that race two back.
Yeah, I think she actually gets a little shuffled back, and it actually will benefit her if she does. But even like that, her debut at Ellis, like she was more closer to the pace than the other two races, and she still ran well. But even then, it seems like she holds on late if she does it that way. So I think that she needs to kind of have more of a one run, and I think if she breaks like that, like she did last time out, which was like a little step, kind of a step slow. For her liking, she could be tough.
Yeah, no, absolutely, especially if she takes a step forward. And the fact that she was even closer, and that was going 5.5 at Ellis too. So maybe she does have a little bit of a opportunity to sit a little bit closer in here. Charlie, we're both going with the number 6, Sister Troyenne. This is one that's won 3 of the last 3 and all by open lengths. The thing that I like is Brian Lynch, obviously home base at Gulfstream Park. However, runs his better horses that in his eyes around the nation. And you can see this one ran at Churchill and Keeneland and won by open lengths, which is actually why Sister Troyenne's one of my bigger opinions on the entire day. I just don't know what type of price you're going to get.
No, I agree. I would be tempted to add her as one of my best bets as well. And, as you mentioned, it starts the turf pick 3, and this is probably one I would at least give a look depending on how, who ends up staying in and whatnot. If, potentially being a single, if I want to get cute and make more of a press up ticket. But the whole reason I like her is what you were just talking about. I just think pace-wise, I don't see why this can't be a replica of what worked out really nicely for her 2-back at Churchill, or 3-back, Churchill. I mean, you looked at that debut on the turf. They didn't go all that fast after going decently fast to the quarter. She sat just off the speed, and then because they didn't really have to use much from her, she had plenty left in the tank turning for home and then just burst away from that field. And I just fear, in terms of if I was someone looking to beat this horse, who I do think will be the favorite, I just don't see why she doesn't get that same trip. And I know it was Tapeta, but she also got a similar trip to that last time where, again, you look, the fractions weren't that fast. She sat just behind the speed and then just blew by and ran away. I just think, I don't know, because, the figure, she hasn't had some big number yet. Maybe she isn't that talented of a horse compared to these others, but I just think she is the best naturally. And I think she's going to trip out really nicely here. And I mean, consistent work tab as well. Sticks with Mario Gutierrez, which not the biggest fan of, but, has been on all the mounts. So it's not something that concerns me by any means. I just think she's tough here, and this setup with this field works out really nicely for her.
And not only that, Brian Lynch has obviously spotted his horses amazingly well, winning 10 of his first 23 starts at the championship meet to kick off that at Gulfstream Park. I completely agree with you, Charlie. I mean, if she's not the best in here, she at least in theory has the best way around the racetrack. And if the 4, who a lot of us have somewhere in the mix in the number 4 Spirit Doll for Safi and Edgard Zayas, if she goes, which in especially with the 3, are a slew of cash, going to want to sit in a pocket type trip. If Spirit Doll goes, Sister Troyenne just sits right off, and in theory, she's going to have the best way around the racetrack. So I do like Sister Troyenne as well. And again, one I was very close to putting on my best bets, but again, I could see her going off at 7, 8 to 5, and I don't want to bet this horse at that price. If she was like 5 to 2, I'd be absolutely all over that. But of course, we don't have morning lines. But just in theory, I think she should be pretty heavily favored in this race. But again, that's why Andrew's trying to beat her, because she has had a lot of easier trips in here. So if she builds off that 75, that puts her right in the mix, if not better than the number 6 Sister Troyenne. I already hit a little bit on Spirit Doll. I think Edgar's just going to go with this horse. A little bit close to the pace last time. One that raced last time that the 1 ran in by wide open margin. So you can argue on what the call is going to be here, but there's not a whole lot of speed in here. Obviously, you can see from the time from US that I showed. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Spiritual, but in my eyes, she goes and the 6 sits right off. We all have different, there's a couple of us that have different horses in third. Charlie, you have the other, or probably the main staffy in this race. In the number 3, Our Slew of Cash. Tyler Gaffalione hops aboard, which I know you're a big fan of. And this is another one that should sit pretty close, but did get beat on the square by Sister Troyan last time.
Yeah, and my slight concern is, while I think, Our Slew Cash obviously is more proven on the turf than Spirit Doll, the concern I have is, I agree with you. I think, they're going to send this 4 to the lead for sure, but I think she is a real shot. So I don't think by any means she's any sort of rabbit in this race where they're going to try to have her to set some sort of crazy fractions to help the 3. I just don't think, Our Slew of Cash, who's already lost to the 6, is proven enough for Safi to sacrifice the 4 for this horse. I think this is the more proven of the 2, but my concern is I think there's a real world where, like you touched on, I think this 4 goes to the lead, backs them up. The 6 stays close enough to go by. But to be honest, the whole reason I have the 4 in second is I think Spirit Doll is the biggest threat to beating R6, Kyle, just because if she can slow them down enough and just walk them on the lead. And also, we've only seen her once on turf, so she has room to step forward. That being said, if they do, for whatever reason, somehow engage in a battle on top, the 6 and the 4, and they do go fast enough, I do think the 3 will be the one. I know time form shows that the 1 will be the one right behind him. I personally disagree. I think the 3 is going to get the first jump. So I do think if for whatever reason the 6 and 4 decide to engage in a speed duel, the 3 would be the one to benefit.
Yeah, which obviously I completely do agree that that's one of them. Obviously, Andrew, you think Spirit Doll also has that type of way around the track where she does go and maybe Sister Troyan, lays off a little bit of her or anything like that. She has the opportunity to wire this field.
Yeah, she seems to be in my opinion, the controlling speed, especially with Safi having the horse directly inside of it too.
Yeah.
I don't see how Safi doesn't tell Zayas just to go and see if she could be the best at late. She proves that she can rate too, so maybe she even lets somebody like the 6 go. Yeah. But I doubt it. I think Spirit Doll is going to be on the lead early and look to control the pace.
That's exactly the way I see it as well. The only other horse I had in there was Tide of Time for James Toner and Jorge Ruiz. I just like seeing those types of numbers. And I know she closed last time, but didn't really do it too well. However, there's some actually very nice fillies in that field, 2-year-old fillies for Chad Brown out there, Claridge, Flavian Pratt, Bella Nose for Brad Cox. So lots of well-meant connections in there. Closed well enough, but also closed at Laurel, but closed in that in a 1:14.2 pace, 49.3. See those blue corded time form US figures on the DRF formulator. Just lots of good things to like that I like to look for in a 3-year-old filly, being able to close, show a little bit of adversity, close when it's a slower pace. And she's getting a little bit of class relief in here from that listed stake last time at Aqueduct. So if Tide of Time was able to sit a little bit closer and be up for at least some part of your exotics trifectas, exactas somewhere in there, that's why I wanted to include her in the Ginger Brew. But again, guys, you can see I showed a bunch of stuff in the DRF with Time From US, the formulator. All these links are clickable. The dam, you can see all of the progeny records. Honestly, guys, we used this a ton of times before we were sponsored by DRF, but now that we are, I now get the ability to say it outright that really I'm ruined. I can't use any other program now unless I have all the formulator clickable links, the Time Form US pace figures as well. One thing I've gotten better at over the last couple years, or last year and a half really, of handicapping, doing this show, is being able to compare pace figures and see discrepancies also when they agree on a race being really good. So again, DRF.com has a ton of stuff every single day. They also have clocker reports available for both Gulfstream and Santa Anita every single race day. So again, go to DRF.com and check out all of their products. And Lois Sire, thanks so much for joining the show. Lois, I greatly appreciate it. And Tanner Hawkins is on babysitting duty, but obviously he always has enough time to tune into Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. In the Ginger Brew, I'm going 6-4-8. Andrew's going 1-4-6. Charlie's going 6-4-3. And didn't get to it at the top of the show, but of course, it wouldn't be Bettin N Boozin without the boozin'. So cheers to everyone out there. Hopefully, like I said, everyone had a fantastic holiday and you all got something fun coming up for New Year's Eve. Guys, next race on the card starts off the Late Pick 5. It's race number 7 in this race. Maiden special weight, 7 furlongs on the dirt for older males. And I'll bring up the Equibase on the screen right now. Most likely morning line favorite is the number 3, Playing Tricks. Tyler Gaffleone. Chad Brown also takes the mount, or takes the training job of that horse in here. And you'll see, I'll bring up our picks on the screen. We're going with 3 different horses in here. I know my Andrew loves his Yolber Torres love. So Andrew's going with the number 5, Noble Sky. I'm going with the number 1, Mizzou. Charlie, you are going with the aforementioned Playing Tricks. Of course, tons of well-meant connections in terms of this horse. Klaravich, Chad Brown, Gaffleone, the ultimate equipment change. Lots of stuff to like with this horse off the layoff.
Yeah, this is certainly a bizarre one, I would say. He's already 5 years old,
Yeah.
made the debut at 5 as well. But to me, there's just the most upside. I get that he's 5, but to me, there's the most upside. We've only seen one start from him, compared, at least in my opinion, the other main contenders. I feel like we've seen enough times that for the most part, we know who they are, and they haven't really progressed. Was very surprised with how this horse acted debuting as a 5-year-old, because I thought the horse was quite immature. As the comments noted, was climbing pretty badly, was really struggling to focus and really get involved into the race, and didn't really seem like he knew what he was doing or what was going on. And then as they started to turn for home, it seemed like, Dylan was finally able to get through to him and wake him up. And obviously, you see, was bet down pretty heavily on that day as well as the favorite. Was absolutely flying late, couldn't get there in time. I think we'll appreciate the stretch out. I think we'll also appreciate just getting that second start. I think maybe part of that immaturity and not focusing is why they went with the equipment change. Also, didn't run against any monsters by any means, but ran against some horses that were decent to come back. I know a horse last time out wasn't good, but after that initial debut effort that wasn't good, there was a Linda Rice horse who came back to win with a nice buyer figure as well. Also coming over from the East Coast. So just looking for a new face here that hasn't really run much with upside, seems to be working well enough at pace, and hopefully the equipment change works.
Yeah, and this is, Andrew, this is the quintessential horse that, in theory, the boss man just hates. The 5-year-old first-time starter, but obviously looked really nice last time, but then 5-year-old first-time starter then goes away for 8 months. It's just a really weird running line, especially for someone like Klaravich and Chad Brown.
Yeah, there's a lot of red flags here. I think the reason why the layoff is probably because of the equipment change. It says it was reported back in June, which is almost 2 months after its debut, but it could have been any time in that frame, because I never really know what the exact date is, because sometimes they'll say that it got gelded a couple days before race day, and I'm like, that doesn't seem possible. But this one, if it improves a slight bit and is less green, he probably wins.
Yeah.
But with all those red flags, that's why I put the 5 on top. But yeah, no, the horse is going to be even money. And with all these red flags and a 5-year-old making its second start, I'm going to have to go somewhere else on top.
I think I said this when I was originally doing this race, this might be and like I said, could he win? Absolutely. Of course he can win. This might be the most overbet horse of the entire weekend, at least. And again, he could win, but yeah, he's probably going to be 6-5 even money, especially off that last race, closing, first-time starter, Chad Brown, Gaffleone, Klaravich. It ticks all the boxes for a horse to be, very low odds. And the fact that the horse started out at 5, then goes away after, being in training basically all the way up to that race, goes off from May to September, works twice at Fair Hill, I think that it, Fair Hill, then comes back.
Has a stop at Monmouth too.
Mm-hmm.
And then a one-off at Monmouth.
Yeah, it's so weird. There's just so many red flags, but of course he can absolutely win, especially if he continues to go forward. Andrew, though, you have Noble Sky on top. This is one for Ron Spatz, Yolber Torres, who's been riding fantastic as a bug, and he gets back aboard on this horse after it was on for the Tapeta, but has run much better since that Tapeta race.
Yeah, I mean, every race of his career has improved. He's taken a step forward each time. Granted, he's hung each time, which is a red flag in my book. But I think the 7 furlongs it might be his max when it comes to distance. But I think that the 1 turn 7 furlongs is actually ideal for this one. The mile was 2 turns and not the best. I mean, he just missed, but the debut race I liked a lot, and I think that's the type of trip he's going to get here. And if he gets to the lead with the bug boy aboard, I think if all signs are green here, and I think that he could get loose on the lead and he might steal it.
Yeah, no, and that's actually why I like my horse in this race is Mizzou, because I think that's exactly what also could happen in this race. 7 furlongs, I think, is probably also the max, but Munnings Bernardini, this horse breeding wise has every ability to get this 7 furlongs, if not longer than this. But see, Jose was on him, was very aggressive. They tried to be a little bit rady last time with him, just didn't end up working out. Now comes down to Gulfstream Park, where was shipped straight down there after that Churchill Downs race. George Weaver has always had this type of spot in mind for him. Draws the inside now too. I think Johnny V's just going to be aggressive and go and see what happens with this horse. And I really do like this horse because I don't think there's much speed other than our 2 horses, Andrew, being the 1 and the 5. So if Johnny V just goes with this horse, breaks well, I could easily see this horse wiring the field. And obviously the dam I always love, Monet Davis, of course, for you baseball fans out there. Monet Davis being the female pitcher at the Little League World Series. Always good to see that dam on the program. Only other horse I want to talk about, guys, then we'll move on, is the number 6 Thunder Roll. This is just one of those really, it's another really weird running line. You know, goes from 7 furlongs on the dirt, debuting, then to turf, the whole way through, then to sprinting on the turf, then back to sprinting on the dirt. They just can't seem to find a spot for this horse. Now comes into here, obviously Godolphin, you know this horse is, and Bill Mott, this horse is always going to be well meant. It just seems to me, Charlie, like they're just trying to find a spot where this horse can win.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but to me, I also think it can be spun into a positive that there's a lot of upside. I mean, you look after the dirt debut running against, shout out my boy Sandman, but then after that, it was obviously meant to be exclusively on turf, except for when it went off on the dirt and they tried and it didn't work out that day. Stuck to turf. Then went on dirt, drew the rail, which is not an easy spot last time out, was sent hard early, and then after that was just sort of sitting in a weird spot, didn't really have anywhere to go, and then it just looked like turning for home, he was going to be empty, but he actually stayed on pretty well to finish 4th. Obviously, it's very weird, like you mentioned, Kyle, to have those kinds of connections and go off at 32-1 is something you'll almost never see for Bill Mott and Godolphin connections. But I thought ran a sneaky okay race. Also, I like the work tab since then, that bullet in 46 flat, then 46 and 3. So I know you guys mentioned that, the 1 and 5 are the only speed in the race, and that's how I initially saw it. But now I kind of think they're trying to put some more speed into Thunder Roll. I do think he can get the 7 furlongs, and I think there's just a lot of upside to this one who we haven't seen on dirt in a while. And I trust that if Bill Mott's going back to the dirt, he thinks, something really is there, and that's why he made that initial switch. And now 2nd time on the dirt. I think also maybe if the, 1 and 5 engage in some sort of speed duel, the 6 can sit right behind, and it might be a rare time for these kinds of connections where you get a decent price.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely on everything you said. Obviously working super well for Bill Mott and Alvarado, and you're going to get at least a decent price on this horse. It's just one of those things that I don't like betting with short price at that, but you're getting a price. It's good enough to take a shot with those types of connections, and he's drawn at least close to he's drawn inside the last 5 times. Finally gets an outside draw, which is the other thing that I do like about him in this race. In race 7, I'm going 1-3-6. Andrew's going 5-6-3. Charlie's going 3-6-1. Guys, moving on to race number 8. It's an allowance optional, 25,000 going a mile and a 16th on the turf. Just a full field of 10 with 1 also eligible to the outside. Lots of really nice horses in here as well. Again, morning line favorite most likely goes to the number 5, George Briggs for Irad and Chad, as I bring our picks up on the screen right now. Both of you are going with the number 5 in this race, George Briggs. I'm actually going with a horse just to the outside of George Briggs in the number 6, Founders for Gaffleone and Safi Joseph. But you guys are on a team against me, so you get to tell me why I'm wrong. Andrew, I'll let you go first this time. What'd you like most about the number 5, George Briggs?
Well, besides the fact that it's Chad Brown, Peter Brandt, and Irad Ortiz, I think that this horse has the trip to trip, or the chance to trip out here, on top of also I think being the best in the field. I do see your well, you didn't make the point yet, but I do see what you like in Founders. I was actually kind of torn between adding that horse in over some of my horses underneath, but I think this race goes through George Briggs. Every race is improving. Sure, they're coming. His best races were in restricted or state bred, so it is taking a step up. But he gets Lasix today for the first time. It's just everything. I mean, the problem is though, I know Chad Brown likes to take his best turf horses to Tampa in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that this horse is running at Gulfstream is a slight red flag, in my opinion. But you get Irad Ortiz, you got all the connections, the pace scenarios there. This horse could be home easy at the 16th hole and come from the clouds at the same time. So this is going to be making one big run, and I like his chances today.
Obviously, Charlie, you do too. You have him on top. I mentioned adversity earlier, the fact that this horse closed very nicely into a 50 flat half mile in Aqueduct. That's not fast by any means. That's very slow. And then obviously it's all coming together. Came back and won another race actually at Gulfstream Park, granted on Tapeta, but that's still obviously a very good sign for George Briggs.
Yeah, and I just think this is a little bit of an interesting horse. I think Andrew hit on a lot of what I was going to say. I like the Lasix. I also think this one will work out a nice stalking trip. I think Irad will find the right spot. I know Chad has not been great at Gulfstream, and I know a lot of times, he's a guy to fade and his horses get over bet. I'm hoping, because of what you sort of mentioned, Kyle, that this is a nice field, and there are some other nice horses like your 6 with connections and some of these others who have run in some other nice races, that maybe the price won't be too bad on this horse, although I'm a little worried because it's Brandt that could change things as well. But I like that this one's lightly racing as upside. I know it's been a while since we've seen this one, but I think it's had a little bit of a sneaky, sort of history, even it's only been 4 races, one on debut, then at Gulfstream, ran against some nice Gulfstream horses. I know Mibago, it didn't end up working out long-term when they tried to really, put that horse on the big stage against the top of this class, where that horse just quite frankly didn't belong. That's a nice Gulfstream horse. Then this one, they threw on dirt for the heck of it and got a win, but Chad still felt, despite that win, that this one was better to stay on turf. And, like we talked about, I mean, they were literally setting Gulfstream, claiming Tapeta fractions, and this horse still almost got there. And that was off a little bit of a break as well for a horse that hasn't really had the chance to get in a rhythm. I just think here, a lot of these Chad horses that have been over bet have been more so in these, claiming races, lower level turf horses. I think the fact that he put one here that actually seems nicer and you would normally think would be at Tampa, maybe there's some other Gulfstream turf race towards the end of the winter meet that he wants to have this one run back in again. I think there's a lot of upside here. And I think Irad will help this one trip out.
No, and I completely agree with all the things you said. I mean, I have him in second. Can he win? Absolutely. But funny enough, everything that you guys mentioned about the horse, like saying, yeah, it's exactly why I don't like him on top, is because said Chad runs a lot of his runners up at Tampa. He runs I really never liked to bet Chad at Gulfstream Park. And this horse is going to be something to 5. And it's just not something that I'm willing to take a chance on, even though can he win? Absolutely. And Andrew said, he could win by open lengths. And would I be surprised? No, not at all. However, I'd be much more willing for me personally to take a 5-2 on Founders rather than 8-5 on George Briggs. And that's just the way that I like to bet Gulfstream, really. Staffy Joseph, Tyler Gaffleone, LaPenta, Matiquette, lots of high-profile connections. This is actually a spot play, using the boss's words, for me at Keeneland. And like all my Keeneland horses did this year, they run a fantastic third and then come back to win in the next race after that. I really like his race 2 back. I know they did heat up pretty well, but he stayed on super good and was basically geared down coming to the wire at the mile and a 16th. I think that's also where this horse likes to be. And last time out, I just think he was farther back than what he wants to be. And they did go quick up front for Tampa. 48-1 on a pretty lush turf course is going pretty quick out there. But I think he's going to sit a lot closer to the pace you see early in his career. At Saratoga, at Keeneland, he sat a lot closer to the pace. And if he does that, I think Founders has a very good chance to win on Saturday. And honestly, is one of my better opinions on the entire day. Just for all the things that we've mentioned about George Briggs. Again, can he win? Of course he can, but with the better price in theory on Founders, I think I'm going to go with him and just go straight win bet trying to beat George Briggs. There's a couple others in here that I want to mention very quickly. Then we'll get going. Obviously, you have our superhero, Andrew, who you have in third. Just one of those horses that is probably the speed of the speed. But if there's a couple other ones in here, which on paper it looks like there are, might be hard to stay on, at least for the win end, but can definitely hold on for a bit of a piece, which Mark Cassie's also had a very nice meet so far.
Yeah, the reason I use the 9 over your Founders in third is simply because of the pace. This horse is also 3 for 4 in the exact at Gulfstream, coming off a career best. Live Oak is one of the ownership groups that I am a big fan of, as they do a lot of work with guys like Michael Trombetta and whatnot that I'm friends with. So like those are good connections that I like to back up. And even if you go back to this horse 3 back and its debut, both lost times to good horses that came back to win and have good careers in Quizler and Layabout. Layabout just won a stake 2 weeks ago at Gulfstream. So I mean, this horse is coming out of good races and beating good or losing to really good horses. I don't see why this horse can't be there at the end, especially if he gets out there loose with Edwin Gonzalez. I mean, Gonzalez is known to be aggressive and sometimes too aggressive. So this one could get loose.
No, absolutely. And like I said, if the pace scenario doesn't heat up like we think, yeah, our superhero can definitely be one at the end. Edwin Gonzalez knows him like the back of his hand. He's ridden him the last 4 times. So I do completely agree with you. Charlie, I know you have the 2, but the last horse I want to talk about is the 1, Sigan Viendo, a horse that we both have in the mix somewhere. In third, I believe we both have. So one of those horses, Charlie, that I think might just be a slight step below a couple of the others that we've mentioned in this race. However, if the pace does heat up, which again, I know we've talked about it and mentioned it ad nauseum so far through this race, but what like we think the pace will be, Sigan Viendo could easily be one to round out your trifecta.
Yeah, I thought about using one of the horses like Andrew used or they used in Founders, but I wanted to put a horse underneath that I thought would be a big price. And I think we're going to get nice odds with this one horse, Kyle. To me, this is just the definition of a great underlay. He's going to save all the ground on the rail. I thought ran a really nice effort last time out. And I know didn't face much, but that horse Nemo, who the horse lost to, is actually a pretty nice turf horse at Gulfstream. So I think when you just look at, the class and it only being an optional claiming 25, it looks like the horse hasn't faced much, but ran into a really nice horse in that race. Faced Braun, who's been a pretty decent and consistent horse at Gulfstream as well. Also one that, not too long ago was running at 5.5, and they've now switched to this longer distance and seems to be improving with every start and finally got a chance to go back on the turf rather than having to scratch off into the Tapeta, which happens all too often at Gulfstream. But I just think this is one that could save all the ground, sit a nice stalking trip. Junior's been terrific here at Gulfstream. And this is absolutely one where, if you take a stand on the 5 or 6 or one of these shorter price horses, this is a nice one to use in second or third that could pay nicely.
I completely agree with you. And the only thing I want to add was, honestly, Sigan Viendo ran a winning race last time, just ended up getting caught down the lane by Nemo. And you can see it in the running line there, was up by a length and a half at one point and just ended up fading late. Of course, that could be that could be a negative. However, I just think maybe push the button a little too early with Castellano. I think his hand was kind of forced in there. You can see going back, I know at a lot lesser than what's in here, but at a maiden 17.5 at a mile and 16th, one powering away. So I don't think the distance is the issue. I just think the trip is going to be the thing for Sigan Viendo. In race number 8, guys, I'm going 6.51. Andrew's going 5.79. Charlie's going 5.21. Moving on to the middle leg of the Late Pick 5, race 9. It's another allowance optional, but this one for 75, going 6.5 furlongs on the dirt for fillies. All of them, they're 3-year-olds, draws a field of 7. Morning line favorite again, guys. This one's actually very wide open. Most likely going to be between the 5 slate today, the 6 Canton and the number 3 Holland Drive. Putting our picks up on the screen right now. Charlie and I are both going with the number 5 Slay of the Day for Johnny V and Brian Lynch. Andrew, going with a horse that both Charlie and I have somewhere in the mix. You're going with on top, the number 1 Cadabra for Irad and Todd Pletcher. Again, very well-meant connections. It's always good to see them down here at Gulfstream Park for the winter. But what did you like most about the number 1 Cadabra?
I like that they gave this horse a lot of time off after its early debut. They almost are treating this horse like it was a 2-year-old season, which is kind of weird. Like run early 400 furlong sprint at Keeneland in April, and then come back in May and run a race in New York, and then take the summer off. But the workout tab at Palm Beach has just been nothing but consistent. And for connections like Pletcher and getting a jockey like Ortiz, this horse seems to be able to improve, and the layoff should actually help this one. It's an aggressive spot coming back. It's not a stake race like Pletcher usually puts a horse that wins off a maiden special weight in a pretty good form. He usually sends that horse right to a small $100,000 stake, but gave this horse time off, and the horse proved that it needed it in the works and is improved in the works, and gets Irad Ortiz, gets the rail, gets Lasix. I mean, why not go with this horse on top, in my opinion? I mean, if you don't go with the one, I think the rest of the field's wide open, and you can pick any of them. And so I think it's going to be the chalk, and I probably will chalk out, but inside speed, gets the rail, gets Lasix, has a be well freshened. She should be tough to beat here.
Which, funny enough, Andrew, I know you brought it up earlier, and I don't want to feel like I'm like basically saying it was her 2-year-old year, because in the beauty that is horse racing is that every horse turns 3 years old January 1st.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot this is supposed to go
January 3rd. 2026. Now everyone's 3 years old. The only reason I picked that up, by the way, was because I saw Lenny Lou in the running line, and I'm like, wait a second, she was 2 last year. So that's the only thing that jogged my mind. But yeah, horse racing, fantastic. I completely agree with you, obviously. I think if she could be a runner, the only thing, obviously, inside draw for basically a 2-year-old still. And I don't know if she's the fastest in the race. That's the only other question. Mm-hmm. Obviously, she ran very quick last time going 5 at Aqueduct, but is getting given some time off. Canton is very, very fast for Safi, and I know Micah has the ability to be aggressive as well. So the trip is the one thing that I was concerned about for Cadabra, just being on the inside as well. But if she wins again, I would be not surprised at all. Charlie has her in second. I have her in third. We all have her somewhere in the mix. Charlie, you and I are both going with the number 5, Slay the Day. And it's kind of, I'm treating this like almost like a 2-year-old race earlier in the year of all these horses are just speedballs. Every single one of these races on the running line, I don't think anyone's passed anyone in this race besides tiring horses. So Trip is going to be A1 in this race, but Slay the Day, Flying Dutchman, Brian Lynch. I know something that you've loved to key in on is that Flying Dutchman, Brian Lynch combination. I thought last time she ran super well, and I mentioned earlier about Brian Lynch. He takes his really nice horses and runs them in Kentucky and around, New York. He doesn't really run in New York too much, mainly Kentucky, but when he takes them around, they're a pretty good one. And obviously bringing them back to the home base of Gulfstream is going to be a good sign.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this is one where she lost to Solemn Vow on debut, who's a nice horse. Like you mentioned, honestly, these are the kinds of races I personally dislike. As me, someone who likes closers. The last thing I like is a race where it's all speedballs, where it looks like none of them want the distance, and you just got to try to figure out, well, somebody's got to cross the finish line and have enough in the tank. But that's what I kind of liked about Slay the Day last time out. I get that she was bet down as the favorite. I understand that she didn't win by much, but she drifted out a little bit, which I think is part of why she didn't win by as much as she could. Also, the numbers for Brian Lynch first Lasix are just ridiculous. I know all of his numbers are, but to me, that was hard to ignore as well. Also gets Johnny Viaboard, who for me, outside of Louis Size, I think that's the next best jockey to have if you have a horse that's pretty speed favoring and wants to be pretty forward, because I feel like Johnny's really good at knowing when to press the button and also making sure not to, let the horse gas themselves out too early. And I thought last time what was important to me is, while you mentioned Kyle, which is relevant to me, that no one really here has shown the ability to pass. I feel like because of that, the other alternative that's important is who can sort of resist pace pressure. And when, the going does get tough and you are facing a lot of pressure, who sort of fades back and who can stay on. And I thought Slay the Day was incredibly impressive second time out, where she faced a ton of pressure in that race and they did go quite fast the whole time, never really let up on her, and she still had enough to get home. So that's honestly how I ended up on her on top. I do think the one will end up being the favorite. I think 1 and 5 are going to take all the money. And I do think Andrew made a ton of strong points. The work tab on the 1 was hard for me to ignore. So I really do think this is something where it's either one of the 2 chalks or anybody could win this race.
Yeah, obviously Palm Beach Downs, where Todd trains a lot of his horses, or I think all of his horses down in South Florida. Because I don't think Todd trains anyone at Payson. I know Chad, Brad, and all those guys train at Payson. I don't think Todd takes many, if at any at all, out to Payson. So I agree with you, Charlie. It's 5-1 a lot of the way around. I know that's the way the money's going to favor as well. I like at least someone underneath. I have the 3 in second. Charlie, Andrew, the only other horse I want to talk about, and then I'll talk about the 3, then we'll move on, is Mo Hijinks. Bobby DeBona brings this one out. Mario Gutierrez. This is one that was down in Florida throughout the entire summer. They gave her a little bit of time off. Another one working well with first-time Lasix.
Yeah, and if you know, everybody was saying, well, who's going to pass horses? Who can pass horses?
Yeah.
This is the only one that has shown to be able to do it. Granted, those buyers are a lot lower than the main hitters in this field, but spent the summer in Gulfstream, hasn't had to ship anywhere. She should be well prepared for this spot. I mean, the pace is set up. She should be able to close. That last trip was really bad, and she still had some kick late. I think, and granted, it was on the slop too. So, I mean, who knows if she liked it or not, but she seems to have an ability to run. She just might be a step below this class, and that's why she was my 3rd choice.
But again, that's something of the long lines of she has at least shown that she could pass one horse on the track. So that could be one thing to key in on. You know, Bobby DeBona also. I mean, we talked about it a lot, but these guys that are having the good meets to start out, you need to keep in mind. Bobby DeBona, 9 for 13 in the money, 4 for 13 on the win end, especially for a smaller barn like his, only 167 starters in 2025. It's something to keep in mind for sure. Again, only other horse I want to mention is the 3 in this race, Holland Drive, Will Walden, Jorge Ruiz. Degenerate Bill of Rights, Amendment 3 is never bet against Will Walden at your own peril. And I know this horse started at Indiana and went to Laurel, which is obviously not Will Walden's number 1 string. This is the only other horse, Andrew, to show that the ability to at least somewhat rate off the base, and only rated off the lead last time, which I don't think is going to happen, especially after that last race at Laurel. And again, that one was in the mud. So the same point that you made with the 7 can be made to the 3 as well. Jorge Ruiz has been very good with his limited mounts that he's had during the championship meet. It's kind of picking at straws in here, honestly, to try and see, pace scenario wise, who can win. But obviously you see that damn Indian Miss, and who's that sibling? That is Hot Rod Charlie, of course. So there's a lot, and Matoli, of course, as well. I mean, Indian Miss is one of the best dams we've seen in recent times. So obviously not the races you want to see with breeding of that caliber, but 2-year-old years obviously can mean a whole ton of things. The other thing that you didn't mention, actually, Andrew, with the 1, but another thing I like is Holland Drive, the 1 and the 2, Freaks Go for that matter. They're all early, early foals, right? They're all born in February, but you could see, April, May for Canton, May for Mo Hijinks. So February, in theory, this horse is almost a 3-year-old already at this point. So definitely one thing to keep in mind when these horses continue to mature. In race number 9, I'm going 5-3-1. Andrew's going 1-2-7. Charlie's going 5-1-2. Guys, moving on to the feature of the entire day. It is the Macho Man Stakes, going a mile on the dirt for 3-year-olds. Draws a field of 9. Pulling the Equibase up on the screen right now. Morning line favorite is most likely the number 3, Epic Summer, after a fantastic race last time out for Tyler Gaffalione. George Weaver brings this one out. Also, Irad Brad Cox with the number 1, Commandment, will take some money, as well as some others in here. We are actually going with the 2 horses I mentioned, Charlie and Andrew. Wow, very based between you two. You guys are both going with the same exact top 3. Hopefully that bodes well for me in here. Hopefully they mush each other, and I can win with the number 1, Commandment. Charlie, I'll let you talk first. Andrew, jump in whenever you want to add in on anything. But Epic Summer, guys. I mean, last time out, I know it was a first time out, but extremely, extremely impressive.
Yeah, no, maybe I'm wrong. I honestly thought Commandment might be the favorite, but maybe just because that was the debut, it's just too hard for Epic Summer not to be. I mean, I really do think this is a 2-horse race between the 3 and the 1. Normally I'm not the one to go for the speed ball, especially going a mile, but It is the 1 mile Gulfstream, and speed has been able to hold pretty decently here when that speed is actually capable. And I just thought Epic Summer's debut was ridiculous. I understand that he only got an 80, which obviously still great for a debut, but, compared to the 1, for example, it's not like it's a figure that others can't match. But to me, visually, there was just no horse in this field that matched the effort like that one. Took pressure the whole way around the track, set some really decent fractions, and yet despite that, seemed to just have plenty in the take and rolled away from those on the lead at the end. When I was watching at the time, I kept just asking myself, when is this horse going to get away? It looks like this is going to be one of those where they just grind each other out, and it's going to end up being a narrow, half a length, maybe a neck victory. And then towards the end, just really showed just how much was actually left in the tank and comfortably pulled away from those as if they were standing still, despite, again, being the one on the lead, not the one benefiting from the fractions they were setting. So I just think could take another step forward here. I understand there's a lot of others they're going to want to go. I just quite honestly think a lot of the others around here are cheap speed, and I'm trying to mature as a handicapper. I think Old Charlie would have, without hesitation, taken the one who's going to sit a nice stalking trip, and I still absolutely think fits in here. Just sort of assume that the speed couldn't hold, but I just think this 3 is going to be tough here and he's going to wire the field.
Andrew, obviously you feel the same way. I love the debut, and actually one of the apparently, according to everyone in here, one of the rare long shots that I bet that day. I did bet Epic Summer, so I'm actually not going the Charlie route with this one, with going with the horse that I've cashed on before. But again, Vekoma is also super good with his 2-year-olds now turning 3 for 3 days in terms of horse racing. Just lots of things to like here, and I think that's why this horse might end up as the favorite.
Yeah, I mean, Epic Summer should just, I think outclass this field. Granted, Commandment is proven to be just as good, but at that Epic Summer race, that horse was, I think, even a little green during the middle parts of those races, and then when horses came out next to him, he just reopened and showed his dominance, and I think he can do the same thing today, especially out of Vekoma.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And obviously I have the horse in second. Nothing to say whatsoever. So the only other thing I want to bring up is the time form. Obviously, the number 7 in this race, Blame Yourself, fantastic name, but also very much the speed. And Cabourg, who opened up 4.5 lengths on the field last time in the matter of 2 seconds. Also very quick. I also don't like that horse is to the inside of Epic Summer, which obviously bodes well for me with Commandment, where the horse can just sit right off of those two, sit somewhere in the mid pocket trip, and being able to run a really good trip, have a really good trip. Blame Yourself is that horse I mentioned for Barbosa. One of Charlie and I's favorite horses trainers in South Florida. Obviously, he's also cross-entered though in a race on Friday. So keep that in mind. That could change your opinion, but the 8 max capacity is not slow, although, as Charlie mentioned, kind of cheap. But again, could just be one horse to cause even more trouble for Epic Summer in this race. Thunder Truck's also not slow. So again, just a lot of other speed in theory in here. Epic Summer might, 1, just be better, and 2, might just be faster than all of them. But I really, really do like Commandment. Commandment's probably my best opinion on the entire day. And I know Epic Summer might just be better than him, but fortunately for me, and of course, unfortunately for the connections, he might just run into a ton of other pace pressure in here. And if that's the case, Commandment goes off, at 2-1, 5-2 in this race. I'll take every single bit of that every single day of the week. Of course, it's Cox, Irad, Wathnon. If this horse goes off at 9-5, being the favorite, 9-5, 2-1, somewhere in there between the two of them, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But Commandment is my best opinion of the day. Going the 1-turn mile is no issue at all for Orb into Mischief. Obviously, they paid a really nice price tag for this one as well. Biggest opinion on the day. This might be the irresponsible wager of the week, but we got to keep it moving along, guys. We think it's a 2-horse race. No sense in talking about a couple others in here while we have a very competitive race to talk about in the last. In the Mucho Macho Man, I'm going 1-3-2. Andrew's going 3-1-6, and so is Charlie, also going 3-1-6. Guys, race number 11 is next. It's the last leg of the Pick 5, but of course, if you guys are enjoying the podcast today, we greatly appreciate all of you watching. Please go down below the video player, hit the like button, and hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it. And thank you again to our sponsors of this podcast. We really appreciate you in TwinSpires, First Racing, and of course, DRF. Guys, last race, allowance optional claiming 25,000, mile on the 16th on the turf, and we want to end here by probably an hour and 5 minutes at most. So let's try and work through this as we can. But we do all have different top picks in here. Andrew's going with the number 7, Concord Green, who Charlie and I both have somewhere. Charlie, you are going with the number 5, White Palomino. Again, Chad Brown for Tyler Gaffleone. I'm going with the number 2, Pass the Hat in this race. Charlie, I'll let you talk first about White Palomino. Then Andrew, I'll let you talk about Concord Green. But Charlie, again, we talked about it again ad nauseum in here, but White Palomino, Chad Brown coming off a little bit of a layoff, which I thought was a really, interesting, again, type of running line for him. But what'd you like most about the number 5, White Palomino?
Yeah, I just thought that was a tough race to have to come back to off of a near year layoff. I know it wasn't a graded stakes race, but still, being an allowance race against some horses that then came back to run some nice figures and win back at other tracks. I just think now coming back to a level like this, I mean, do I think it's a little weak for him? Absolutely. But I think this is very much so a get right spot for this horse. I think this is one of those races where either White, Palomino just shows the class and just wipes the floor with this field, or almost anybody can win. I am glad to see who you guys each have on top, because those are the other 2 horses I have in my top 3 and were really intriguing to me. I just think there's a lot more question marks about them. But yeah, for White Palomino, work tab seems to show that this horse is doing just fine at Payson, which is a big positive for me. Gets Tyler G on, which I like as well. And again, we've talked about this a lot of times. To me, at least, it's the Chad Brown horses that are sort of dumpy, that he just doesn't think are good enough for his main horses at Tampa, that get overbet. And I just think he happens to have 2 horses on this card that don't really fit that usual bill. And I feel like I've been pretty good about not betting Chad because I've recognized those kinds of horses. And I just think White Palomino lays over this field in terms of class.
Easily could. I mean, it was second to Trickery back in earlier this year, which you could argue what Trickery would be in this race, 1-9, something like that. So I do completely agree with you in that regard. Andrew, you're going with Concord Green, Shug McGahee, Irad Ortiz.
Yeah, I had this horse last time out at Tampa off the layoff, and just got nailed at the wire by Heathguard, who came back to win again, who's a really good horse over at Tampa. I like this spot for this horse. It's a little aggressive coming off of that weight, that second place chance at Tampa last time out, and second off a layoff. I like it going to a stronger spot. Against Irad Ortiz, should trip out. I mean, this horse can close or go press off the pace like last time out. And I always love a third off of Kentucky Downs, or second after the Kentucky Downs, but third in the sequence. And it gets the break in the middle of the pack, where the last 3 races it broke 12 or 11th out of like 11, 12, 13 horses. So, I mean, even 4 back, this horse broke 8 out of 9. So I like the post position and all the connections, and I think it should trip out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously I agree with you. I have the horse in second, so I really am interested in Concord Green as well. That was the name of the horse. Okay, just making sure. I kind of pulled that out of nowhere. Pass the Hat is my top pick, and guys, I actually really like Pass the Hat in here. This is just one of those I think is just muddied up. One time this horse has ran routing on the turf, by far the horse's best race in his entire life. And I know he's 5 years old now, as 4-year-old going into the 5-year-old year as the time this card comes out, but gets Junior back aboard. Should be a decent pace in here, as well as showing the time form. They denote it as a fast pace as well. So getting back to probably what this horse likes to do best, Veronique has had a lot of good runners, including Nashville. So you could argue, why is this horse on the turf if he's a half to Nashville? But of course, the one race that this horse showed a lot of promise in was that turf race at Aqueduct. And now second, coming back from that, going back to the route, back to the turf, might get a decent price in here. I actually really do like Pass the Hat in the last race. Charlie, we gotta go quick here, as we have a show coming up here in 5 minutes also. So hopefully go for the double header. Charlie, you're going with 2 best bets on all playing around these Chad Brown horses. Race 7, a win with the number 3 playing tricks, and a double race 10, 1-3 with 5.
Yeah, if I could, I'd change it to a double from the race before in race 6, because I didn't know we were going to cover it. I'd play that 6 that you and I had, Kyle, on top, blanket on the name right now, into the 3, and then I do that double 1, 3, 5. Yeah, again, to me, I know we already talked about those last 2 races, so just being brief, we all think it's 1 or 3. I still feel that way. And then for me, like I said in the last race, I just feel like it's one of those where it's either White Palomino or it could be about 5 or 6 different horses. So I'm just going to bank on that. That one does show up that day, and I hit it with 1 or 3 in the race before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, like you said, we think it's a 2-horse race, so absolutely nothing wrong with that. Trying to capitalize on one of your best opinions, Andrew. You're already wearing off on you, my friend. Going straight to the 2-win bet strategy, which of course you know I love. Winning number 5, George Briggs in race 8, and winning number 3, Epic Summer in race 10.
Yeah, see, I wish these races were back to back because I would have just played the double, but I'm gonna be able to do that anyway through TwinSpires with their new parlaying option. So I'm just gonna probably play a heavy non-ethical double with the race in between not really mattering. But yeah, I think Chad Brown's best horse of the Gulfstream card is George Briggs, and then Epic Summer might be the best horse running on the card in general. So I think those two are pretty self-explanatory, and we talked enough about both of them being probably 6-5 apiece. But
Also,
we'll
nice
see.
plug in there, by the way. I
Yeah.
do appreciate that one, dude. He's learning, dude. We get that. Andrew, good luck with your best bets, but also not good luck, my friend, because we're going with the same races, just different horses. Race number 8, a win the number 6 Founders, and in race 10, a win in the number 1 Commandment. I talked ad nauseum about these as well. Founders, I think it's a really nice setup after having some really nice races coming back. Should get a nice pace in there. And same thing with Commandment. The pace should be heating up well. Irad's going to have him sitting in a really nice pocket trip. And to a Gulfstream track that's actually been it's been very fair, which is not something you usually see down at Gulfstream Park, especially in the winter on the dirt course. It's usually pretty towards speed, but there's been some really deep closers that have won on the dirt course, which is very, of course, nice to see, and they've done a great job down there. But so I don't have any reservations about a horse closing on the dirt so far this Gulfstream meet. Guys, thank you guys all so much for joining. We greatly appreciate it. Of course, as we have another big show coming up for you guys now in 2.5 minutes with PNP, where they're covering the start to the road to the Kentucky Derby down at Oaklawn Park with the Smarty Jones Stakes card. And until for my co-hosts, Andrew Rosinski and my good friend Charlie Freeman, I'm so glad to have him back on the podcast. This has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode 162 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast, covering the Late Pick 5 for Gulfstream Park to start off your new year for January 3rd, 2026. Again, guys, don't go anywhere. We have a show coming up for you guys here very shortly with Picks and Ponies. But until next time, everyone, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.